All right. I am Marwan Cameron, and this is The Conduit. It's Wednesday, everyone. It is March 16th. It's Hump Day. It's our new time for the Bremerton Housing Authority and KCR. Applause, because we gave Mark an applause earlier, so we're going to give Matt an applause now. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Marwan. It's really good to be here. Good to see your face.
Yeah, absolutely. Back at you. 100%. So we don't have the ladies today. Jill is on vacation, and I think Katie is otherwise tied up with the busyness. So it's just you and I today.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
I'm sure we'll figure out something to talk about. We have such a problem with coming up with words, right?
That's right. That's right.
So
Just
go ahead.
just FYI, I got to be out of here a little early because I got a doctor's appointment. So around 3:45, I gotta roll out.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So what's new in the zoo?
Oh gosh, so much. We got so many things we're working on. Some of which we've talked about, some of which I hope to talk about once we kind of get a handle on it. But yeah, so I think the team is we've had a lot of leadership changes, which we announced, and I think we're kind of getting into the groove of that. And I'm learning my new position here and trying to figure out what I don't know. And but it's good. I really feel confident in our team, and I'm excited to kind of see where this goes in this year and into 2023. And yeah, I it's an exciting time. It's kind of at that big beginning phase, right, where we got a lot coming. There's a lot of work to do, but we're excited to see where it goes.
Well, you know what? Let's do something a little bit different because we always get new viewers, every week. So, what is your title and what is it that you do?
Yeah, no, we can back out. I did this for the library a little bit ago of just going through how KCR works and because we've had so many changes, so we might yeah, maybe that would be useful down the line to do just how KCR actually like draw some flow charts and actually talk about what clients experience. But yeah, I love doing that type of stuff. Well, you and I are both teachers, Marwan, so I love drawing diagrams on boards. So yeah, my role, I was a housing manager for about little over 3 years, and then recently John Coach, the director, he decided to retire, and I've accepted his old job, and so I'm now the housing and community support services director. So that encompasses managing about 6 teams. So we have our energy assistance, our weatherization, we have our rent assistance programs, our housing solution center, our housing, and then our veterans. So we have kind of 6 teams there that I manage and support, and they all those teams individually do huge things in the community. And so it's very honored and humbled to be leading them. So that's the official kind of title and what I do. And so I know before I was representing more just the housing side. So now I'm representing a little bit more facet of the agency, and happy to be here and kind of talk about what we're doing.
So tell me your title again so I can update your title here because it's a long one.
It's a little too long for my liking. I didn't choose it, but it's Housing and Community Support Services Director.
Housing and Community Support Director.
Yeah.
All right.
Housing director for short. No, it's fine. I don't get too caught up on titles. You're not going to offend me at all if you get it wrong.
Oh, that's all right. But you earned it, right? And it's good to have that other piece in there because when with change and it's like, oh man, I've known Matt as the housing guy, and it's like, well, no, I'm more than that now. So you can help me with all kinds of other things. So I removed your number on there because I meant to ask you. I have actually 2 numbers listed for you on there, so I took it off and just kind of put your title up there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's really kind. And you are right. It's not just housing is our division manager. There's our weatherization, veterans, and energy, which are all, somewhat related to housing because housing is somewhat related to everything. But they also, are not dedicated homeless service programs, right? And they encompass a lot more than that. So that's kind of where that community support services come.
So in that, right now, folks are applying for energy assistance, and that's kind of a year-round thing if they need some
Yep.
help.
Yep.
And can you talk a little bit about that program a little bit?
Yeah, so we have a program with LIHEAP and PSE, and so it is a program. It's a little more. It's been a lot around a lot longer than our KEPA program. So our KEPA program is rent and utilities, and so it runs kind of side by side. So the KEPA program won't be around forever because that was a lot of the federal funds. So we ramped that up really quickly, and then probably around spring of 2023. That's when we're somewhat expecting things to really ramp down, and so that program might change a little bit. There'll be some version of it that hangs around because our legislator has dedicated money, but essentially that's a lot of what I've talked about before, right? Is the KEPA program. But our energy team has been around for a lot longer, and they've been consistently doing energy support in the community for many years. And that program, like I said, is funded through the LIHEAP grant, and then PSC has some money directly that they support with, and so it's a little trickier. It is a low income program. There's a little more paperwork that you have to do, and there they do get a little bit backed up. So they, it's same kind of with our KEPA. It's a wait of a few months to actually get assistance, but they've been doing it for a long time. They do a great job. They process a lot of applications, and so they similar to KEPA in the sense of you got to meet a set of criteria, and low income behind on energy. They typically pay electricity PSE, although it's focused around heating, right? So it's kind of whatever you're doing for heating. That's kind of the main piece, and yeah, and they're so if you go online to our website. They have kind of a scheduler. It's sometimes not a true scheduler, but it is a way that's kind of the standard way to get assistance. You have there's a zip code list. I can actually throw it up, Marwan. You want me to do that?
Sure. And then let me ask. Actually, if you pull it up, you can actually share your screen now.
I will do that. Let's see.
And now the energy assistance is tremendously important for folks.
Absolutely. So Marwan, I like what you do just from start to finish here. So here's our website, kcr.org.
Mhm.
So you can either scroll down to energy assistance, or you can go to get help and hit energy. So if you go to energy assistance, you can see my screen, right, Marwan?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And so they have a little frequently asked questions tab here. And so they've got a few questions like, what type of documentation do I need to bring to your appointment? You'll need to bring a heating bill, picture IDs for everyone 18 years or older, social security cards for everyone in the household, proof of home ownership or rental agreement. Also need to bring proof of income for all members of the household for the last 4 months prior to your appointment. Could be pay stubs, TANF, social security. You'll also need to bring the employer wage verification form, landlord statement, self-employment form, and unemployment record request form if applicable. So a lot of really good information there. They've got, if you'd like to schedule an appointment, you can call the line. There's only a limited number of appointments are available, and then once they kind of fill all those slots, they kind of close it down.
Okay.
And here's the eligibility. So zip code list is here. So here's all the zip codes in Kitsap County, or the ones that qualify for the program. Most of Kitsap's here.
And so Matt, during COVID, all of the utility assistance was online, right? So is that still happening, or is it coming in now as we're opening back up? Is it a hybrid?
It's a hybrid now. So they try to do what they can via the phone, but they are starting to see some folks, but I still think it's majority they're doing kind of mailing in and doing that. I think they're still doing that still.
Has
Trying to
that
do
been
it
pretty
remote.
effective, for folks that may have challenges with transportation and timing and things like that?
I think it's been a little bit of both. I think and that's what we've noticed too. And I think that's what going forward I would love to see us learn the benefits of COVID, right? And I think Same thing with Housing Solution Center is it is really nice for certain folks that they don't have to get transportation to come down here. If we can do virtual video, or if we can do a phone call, mail, whatever that might be.
Right.
But some folks really benefit from in-person interaction, right?
Absolutely.
Um, and it's actually a lot harder for them to really convey what they need to communicate, and so to actually see up front, especially members of our unhoused, communities, right? It's sometimes really helpful just to come in, because sometimes they might not have a phone, right, or whatever it is. So it really, to me, seems the best path forward, and that's what we're kind of working on as we're slowly, right? The mask mandate for the county has been lifted, or for the state rather, has been lifted. And so I think as we're kind of going forward, KCR still has a mask mandate because of our Head Start federal requirements. So we'll see where that goes. But things do seem to be lifting a little bit, and so I think how we move forward is the conversation now of learning the lessons, and so that's what we're going to be working on. And Housing Solution Center has really gone to that, as we try when needed to do those phone calls and get that done, but we're now seeing clients fully in person. So that's what I expect to try to go forward with.
Yeah, I love hearing that, taking the good parts of a bad situation and passing that on to clients and staff as well, right? Making their
Yeah,
job easier and more efficient. Another question that I had for you
yeah,
was this. Uh, if let's say my situation changed and it's like, man, I need some utility assistance, and I were to come in, what's kind of the time frame of starting to gather the paperwork and coming in and with the appointment to getting that assistance, and do I talk to the energy department? Like, what do I do?
yeah. So there is this, the phone number. They'll probably call you back, right? They get, just like us, right? We've got a wait list. They've got wait lists. There's huge numbers of folks that are requesting assistance, and so it can take a little bit. Sometimes a week or so to actually get a call back. Sometimes, right, to schedule that appointment. There is this kind of online portion that you can try to let them know is like, hey, I'm interested, and right, they want, here's some more information, and then you can apply for uh, assistance, and here's kind of their process. But I think the biggest thing that I can say is it's with all our systems being overloaded, it just takes time. And I would expect a similar amount as us. Of this going through our wait list right now is about 3 months.
Right.
So I think sometimes from when you first apply to when that assistance is in hand, it can take that, hopefully shorter, but it can take up to that. By the time it's all said and done, you collect documents, right, and you go forward. I know, and I'm less familiar with the energy side of things, so I'll try to double check and learn more. So that's why I'm trying to not speak too much to the energy guy. I'm still learning myself about those programs, but I will definitely learn more and try to get some more detailed information going forward.
Gotcha. We have a question in the chat. You may have addressed this prior to me, BK Thing, coming on here. However, does KCR still offer emergency housing? Great question, BK.
Yeah, it depends a little bit what you mean by that. So if you mean by um, emergency housing, like do we do hotels, or do we have actual housing units that are emergency? That word emergency housing kind of gets used a lot. So it kind of depends on what you mean, but I'll kind of go through the different scenarios, right? So for folks that are in immediate need of housing, we have only 36 hard units, and those are filled very, very quickly. And so that's not just generally available. And of those 36 hard units, we have 3 that are classified as shelter or emergency units. That's typically what folks mean when they say emergency housing. They're talking about shelter. And so we have 3 units. And so when that's available, we fill that right away, right? Because there's just so many families that need that. So yes, we do, but it's not something like that's on demand, because it's a really small number for families. And typically we'll reserve that for families with disabilities or mental health, because those families are difficult to house in traditional shelters, and we have a little bigger unit. So we try to put really vulnerable families there, because of some of the barriers that they have. Now, we also refer to the various shelters in the community. So that's typically what people mean too when they say emergency housing is shelter, right? So we have Salvation Army, the Rescue Mission, George's House, St. Vincent de Paul. And so those are the shelters that we refer to. And so those shelters are, right, emergency housing for folks that need shelter that night. YWCA for women fleeing domestic violence. Now, some of those shelters, like the Rescue Mission, is we have formal kind of referral process as we actually manage the priority pool. Others, like the Salvation Army, we just send them down there and usually they have a spot. Although we should say the Salvation Army is, I believe it's at the end of this month, is shutting down. They weren't able to secure the I think the resources and personnel that they needed to continue, and they have done a tremendous job during COVID to stay open year round.
Yes.
Traditionally, they only were a winter shelter, and then they've stayed open. Really, like a lot of agencies have stepped up well beyond their original mandates during COVID, but it's finally kind of time for them to pare back a little bit. So the Salvation Army won't be available through the summer. However, there still are other shelters, and so that's sometimes what folks need. Other times, I think when folks say emergency shelter, they mean kind of hotels. And that is something that's going to be ramping up, but it's not necessarily on demand. So that's for folks that are in case managed programs that we cannot find anywhere else. So if you have a case manager, that we have been placing some folks in hotels, but it's limited and it's program specific and it's not available on demand for just anybody. It's really folks that have been referred and have high barriers, fleeing domestic violence, right? Have pretty significant barriers to housing and are currently unhoused, right? Currently in the streets in a car or actively fleeing a violent or a domestic violence situation. So that's sometimes how we use hotels, but I want to be very careful because we do not have the funds for kind of just anyone who wants a hotel, on demand to put them up in a hotel. So it's really kind of specific cases depending on vulnerability. And that's really how we operate. And that's what Housing Solutions Center, right? We have tools and we try to assess vulnerability and we prioritize our resources for those that are most vulnerable. That's generally how it works. So Marwan, does that answer the question there, do you think, for emergency housing? I know it's kind of a broad umbrella.
Oh, no. That PK said, thanks. That's awesome. And she's taking notes. So that's fantastic.
Oh, fantastic. That's right. It was a question from a viewer. So awesome. Yep. Well, that is a fantastic question too, because there is a lot of confusion about the different types of housing and it can, people throw around jargon. So that's kind of why we're here, is to try to explain what the different types is and how you access them and how they operate. And so for really, I guess we should always, Katie would say that, how do you access it? I love Katie's questions. And so it's always through Housing Solutions Center. So all these programs are referred through Housing Solutions Center. And that's what the navigators do, is they look at what programs are available and match based off of vulnerability to those programs.
And that's what we do too. So if a client comes in and they're in need, then we get them in contact with the resource.
Absolutely. And
through that.
Yeah, and we work definitely with Gather Together, Grow Together, and some of the other buy and force too. When they have unhoused clients, try to connect them in. So that
and not just buy and force, like that's like all agencies, like Scarlet Road, like everyone, right?
Yep. We have all these community agencies, some of which we refer to, but all of which we definitely want them to refer to us, right, to get them through Housing Solutions. And some of them we do a little more extensively, like you, Marwan. We've talked a little bit about you all helping clients fill out the HSC application, right? And we're definitely open to doing that with partner organizations so that they can kind of help clients navigate, especially if you have a good relationship with them.
And so another question that came in is, please ask him if buy and for liaisons are able to do KEPA with eviction notice referrals, or if the client has to get a hold of Kitsap Legal themselves. I mean, the buy and for KCR liaisons.
So let me read. There's a lot there. So the buy and for liaisons are able to do KEPA with eviction notices referrals, or if the client has to get a hold of Kitsap Legal themselves. So I think what they're asking is, if a client has an eviction notice, can a KEPA liaison or a buy and for KEPA outreach partner refer them into the program? Is that how you read it, Marwan?
That's how I read it, and I'm waiting to get confirmation there.
Yeah. So it's a fantastic question. So the answer, as usual, is it depends on the situation, right? So if it's the client's first round, meaning they have not gotten help in 2021 or 2022, KEPA outreach partners, buy-in for outreach partners can refer directly in no matter where they are in the process, and we'll start prioritizing them, right? They get priority based off our kind of racial equity mandate and achieving our racial equity goals. So yes, refer those folks into your KCR liaison, and those folks can start rolling. Now, I think the question might be referring to second round folks, right? So someone already got help because a keep it outreach partner, right? Say your organization, Marwan, right? You already referred a client in, and then now they've got an eviction notice. They've got a 14-day notice, right? And they're starting the process. So those folks, you can definitely let us know, but the official referral for second round has to come from the legal folks. That's
Mhm.
what engages the second. So the buy-in fours, um, they can definitely let us know and we'll work in conjunction, right, with Kitsap Legal, but they themselves cannot jump the second round line because we want to make sure they're actually in the eviction process, the landlord's done everything correctly, and that they're actually engaged with, and that's what our legal partners are really good at. Now, I know we're trying, because there's so many folks in this group, Carla and the team has been trying to fast track stuff. So if the client, and they've been working with the legal partners, so if the client has proper documentation, like a 14-day notice with a DRC referral, in certain cases, if our team can confirm that that's done correctly, that can start the process. But we still need that documentation and then the okay from DRC. So the short answer is no. The long answer is yes. Please let us know, because we want to work with those folks, and then especially if they are in the eviction process, then we want to work with our legal partners, make sure we scoop them up, and they will be, if they're actually being evicted, they will be eligible, right? We just can't skip the line based on the buy-in for a referral on its own, but there are other pieces, and that could be paperwork, referrals from a legal partner, right? And Carla has done a fantastic job of working with Dispute Resolution Center, Kitsap Legal, and Northwest Justice Project, because they are seen and they want to try to be more efficient with folks that are being evicted, and a lot more landlords are trying to evict clients now. We're definitely seeing an increase in those 14-day notices. So yeah, so does that make sense, Marwan? That's kind of a lot.
No, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
She hasn't responded yet, but as soon as she does, she's shopping.
Okay.
So I'll see if that was what she was looking for there. So let me just circle back really quick. Did you
Yeah.
say Salvation Army will no longer be sheltering homeless individuals, period?
Not period. I believe they will start back up again in the winter.
Okay.
I think they're just taking their regular summer. They're going back to their pre-COVID schedule, which was just a winter shelter.
So let me ask, where are the people going to go?
Well, that's a really tough one, and that's something that Housing Solutions Center already is working with some of those folks trying to find solutions. But some of them probably will be exited homelessness, and that's something that it's always heartbreaking, but it is an unfortunate side effect. But Salvation Army does a tremendous effort. They put a lot of effort into trying the best they can to give those folks a housing destination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, they did the thing. There's not a big enough thanks. They definitely were heroes during that time frame. And I
Yeah.
remember working with Dawn Michelle and seeing her in her full hazmat, and COVID was uncertain, and you have all these folks together. Um, yeah, they really picked up the mantle and ran with it, and were standard bearers as far as
Mhm.
how to interact with each other and protocols and things like that. They were kind of informing others on how to go about that because they had so many people in one space. So
Yeah.
yeah, just a tremendous kudos to Salvation Army for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. They deserve a huge thank you from the community, because they're like so many of the agencies just stepped up tremendously. So I concur with that 100%, Marwan, and I hope no one thinks this is them letting the community down. Right? They've got their own internal constraints, just like the rest of us, and they were stepping up well above and beyond for these past 2 years, and it's just time, I believe, to go back to their regular operating schedule.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I push really hard on many of my other shows of trying to encourage people to, really be proactive, right? That
Yeah.
these resources and these services are not going to be able to continue to operate at the level that they've been operating at, right?
Hmm.
These were emergency funds,
Hmm.
and they're going to go away, and then we still have these other things like conflict in Ukraine. Um, Gas prices, food prices. We still have chip issues with, auto manufacturers. We have all these things that are happening. Homelessness was already a pandemic before COVID, right? So
Yeah.
it's just getting worse. Um, and then once these things are starting to be withdrawn, then you still have this. You're going to have these huge gaps. And then what? You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So how are we going to address it? I don't know how many people were at Salvation Army, that are getting ready to be displaced. Was it 75?
That sounds right. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but that sounds right.
I know there were some pretty huge numbers because they had like overflow into another area. I mean, they were everything they could do, they were doing, right? And
They
so
did. Yeah, and I've have you been through there, Marwan? It's pretty amazing. Yeah, they really um it wasn't like that building was designed to do
What what's
what
so
they were
funny
doing.
is pre-COVID, right when COVID was just touching off, we would G2 was there every Tuesday night. And so as folks were checking in for the evening, we would sit at a table and have conversations with folks and help them with services. So instead of them coming to us, we were coming to them, right? And then we would cook meals in the kitchen at Salvation Army once a week. And then COVID
Wow.
hit and then it shut down. So
Oh,
uh, yeah, we were just doing that. So yeah, we used to walk all up and in there and
yeah.
just really just make a really great meal with love and serve everyone in there. So it was really great. But COVID
That's
stopped all that, unfortunately. So
I know, and I know that is there's such cool stuff that COVID stopped that I think our community was doing, and um, gosh, I know that's such a bummer. Hopefully we'll get back to some of that stuff.
oh, absolutely, and it's definitely more needed now more than ever.
Yeah.
So just to kind of keep on that vein. Right now, the rescue mission is pretty secure in their space on Kitsap Way.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for them, but yeah, so they're partially at the Quality Inn, and they I think are doing a tremendous job out there. I mean, they've expanded operations just like everyone else, and
Mhm.
have a ton of respect for Robin and Robin O'Grady's the executive director, and Gina's the case manager over there, and they just do wonderful work, and then. Um, and yeah, so that is their current location, I think, for the foreseeable future until they figure out their long-term solution.
Which is still, I think, Port Orchard, right? Is they have that building that they're looking at. Is there any word? Because I haven't sat in on the community meetings for housing. So is there any talk on that, on time frames or anything?
I don't think they have a time frame right now. At least, well, I think they have some time frames that they want to achieve by, but I don't think it's set in stone yet.
Gotcha.
So I don't think there's a for sure. I think they're still working with the community and trying to make sure the behind the scenes of getting the building ready and all the pieces that entails. So I know they're working really closely with the county and yeah, to get that move going. Yeah, and that's the Mile Hill, and I think it was an older building that
Mhm.
they've purchased with the county, and so anyways, so I know I forget exactly what it used to be, but I think there's some form of rehab, and again, I'm not an expert on this, so I don't want to speak too in detail since I'm
Right.
not involved in some of the planning. That would definitely be the rescue mission in the county that would have more accurate information. But
Well, 2
that
things I
is,
definitely need to reach out to Robin. and then
Mhm.
also uh you know uh legal. We were trying to get legal on.
I
Um,
know. That
definitely
is
have that
still an
conversation.
I know that is on a to-do list. Well, I'm sure like you, Marwan, right? The to-do list, they just endlessly grow. And I need to put that back to the front because we lost a little bit of momentum. But I know it would be fantastic to get some of those legal folks on and to really, especially now that I think we're really in the thick of it and everyone's kind of staffed up and it's happening and evictions are going on. And so I really think, yeah, if we could get by April, if we could organize and get them on, that would be fantastic.
No, and you're not the only one. I we are now on iTunes and Amazon Music, Spotify.
Oh,
We will
nice.
be on BCAT here by the end of the month. So we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes also. So
Awesome.
it's like, yeah, we got all these things we want to do. We're working on these things, and yeah, it's crazy. So
Yeah,
for sure. But I wanted to circle back because, one of the series, I kind of have an overall theme of 2022, and it's
yeah,
probability over possibility, right? There's a lot of things that are possible, but I kind of like to deal with the probable, right?
yeah,
What's the probability that this is going to happen or what the situation is going to be?
yeah, yeah,
I look at this situation as I said, there was a crisis in housing before the pandemic. We have the
yeah,
pandemic. We have, global conflict that is affecting us directly and indirectly. And as things open back up, and hopefully it stays that way. But if you're watching the news, Hong Kong is shut down right now, and they're breaking records again, in regards to COVID. And so hopefully we don't get any of that. But
yeah,
as the resources go away and you're seeing it, right? Salvation Army is gonna open back up in the wintertime, right? This is the situation now. If you need utility assistance, there's gonna be a wait. You may wanna be proactive, even if that's not your situation now. Start looking at these things like we were speaking about before with your cover letter and resume. Make sure you have this documentation. So if for whatever reason you may find yourself in need, you have it at the ready and you can submit it so you don't extend that delay in the service that you may be able to receive. I think that's really important. And to that end, we're almost in April already. Our first quarter of the year went like that. And unfortunately, we're gonna hit our hot, summer months. Well, that's not unfortunate, that's great. But
yeah,
fall and winter will be here within a blink of an eye. And what do you need to do to put yourself in the best position to make it through the next winter? Hopefully sheltered and thriving.
yeah,
So just want people to really consider that, make some plans, make some goals, reach out to all the different resources and see what you can do to really kind of push forward during this time because I think we're dealing with uncertainty for the next few years, right? I mean, we don't know what tomorrow holds anyway, but I
yeah.
think even more so, we're dealing with a lot of turbulence. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think well, one, the time, I can't believe how fast it goes. It's crazy that we're already almost done with quarter one of yeah, in 2 weeks, we'll be done with the first
Yeah,
quarter of 2022. Like we're a fourth of the way there. It just is mind-boggling that it goes so quick. And you're absolutely right. As the summer will be here, and then we'll be back in winter, and obviously we want as many people sheltered and housed through winter as possible. So I think you're right. There's a lot of uncertainty right now in the world, especially with Ukraine. So we already had potential inflation issues happening, right? Um, which we're glad all the stimulus money that came through, right? But um, there is some inflation that may have resulted as some of that, and so that was already making things a little bit more expensive. And then now Ukraine, and that's potentially interrupting, right? How globalized and interconnected we all are. That could affect how things get shipped, even if we get relatively little of food or resources or commodities directly from Ukraine, right? That can have a ripple effect that can further make stuff more expensive, especially in the oil, right? We've seen oil really quickly, right? Skyrocket up, even though I think last I saw, we don't really get that much from Russia, anyways, right? It's just that ripple effect that can cause havoc, even just a little bit. And so there is a lot of uncertainty. And then also we don't know whether how COVID is going to respond, right? I know you're Hong Kong. I was just reading, the UK has already seen some rise again, some cases after they've gone completely, away from any of their measures, and so it'll be really interesting to see kind of what happens, right? I pray and I hope that we are in more of an endemic situation where that we'll see numbers go up, but we won't see those hospitalizations, right? It'll be more kind of flu-like, right? But it's impossible to know. It's very I've heard some folks say that it's not like Omicron had to be as mild as it was, right? It was very transmissional, but it didn't have to be that, right? It could have mutated in a different direction. It just so happened to do that. So there is a very real possibility that we could, in the wintertime again, right, be dealing with a transmissional, but a much more serious virus. We just don't know, right? And it's something that it's in the realm of what, right, possibility versus probability. Is it probable? I don't know. I'll let the scientists that are much smarter than me talk about that, but it's definitely something to I don't think many of us would be surprised if that happened. So we've got prices, we've got potential ramifications of pandemic, and then now the third big piece of that is that's not only was the crisis before, but then now the pandemic made worse is our affordability crisis, right? Is actually trying to get housing that is affordable is a huge, huge challenge. And we just don't have enough housing supply. And so there is definitely all those factors that are going to be making it really difficult within Kitsap to try to get ready, right, for another winter and even summer, right? If we have another heat wave, right, we would definitely want people to be cool. If we get another heat wave like we had last summer, that was definitely deadly in some areas. So I think those are a lot that's happening, and I think the recipe for that is what we talk about, right, is getting on lists. I cannot preach enough is subsidized housing list, right? Getting education, what you always say, Marwan, right? There is a nursing shortage, right? Taking advantage of going to school CNA route and then nursing themselves. Those are livable wages, right? Some of at Harrison, you're starting high 30s, sometimes 40s, depending an hour, depending on where you end up and what floor. And those are livable wages, right? When you're making, $39, $38 an hour. And so that's definitely something to really think about too, is long-term, is healthcare is a big way, to actually become self-sufficient. But in the meantime, right now is, at some point, Bremerton Housing Authority is going to, open up more housing choice vouchers, right? And we'll see how that process works. Might be a little different, as Katie and Jill shared. That's one piece. And then signing up for all the subsidized units. Those your name will eventually get called. They go through those units, going on their website, right? And then coming to us if you're unhoused and actually need homeless services. And trying to work there, but that's there's not really a secret sauce to when we're case managing folks, right? It's we're doing that exact same thing when we're trying to help folks. It's okay, how can we increase income so that you can afford your unit? And if there's not a viable path to increase income, then how can we get you on subsidized housing, right? So that you can actually afford housing, and that's either increase income with education and jobs, or it's signing up for lists and wait lists, right, for long-term subsidies that can support you. We'll see what happens with some of the legislation that's coming in, and if Congress does any more, if that's going to open up more opportunities. Again, we know there's going to be some extra, and we'll talk about this when this is because there's some legislation that we might want to do another one with Kirsten and some of the other folks to talk about some of the new legislation, but there is some legislation. I think it was 1836 or something like that. Don't quote me on it. I need to look it up. But actually, I think I can pull it up in my email real quick.
And while you're pulling it up, one thing that I want folks to keep in mind, even if this pandemic does become endemic, people are still going to get sick, which means maybe your kids aren't in daycare or they're not in school. And for low-income folks, You don't typically have sick leave or paid days off, right? If you get sick and you're not at work, so every dollar counts. So it's just things that you have to be cognizant of. And a lot of times in the news, you hear it's like, oh, everything's better, everything's open, but it still is impacting people in a really tragic way. So being prepared is important.
It's House Bill 1866.
House Bill
That's
1866.
1866. So that is essentially going to, especially for folks that are chronically homeless, it's going to open up some new doors, especially with the foundational community supports program. So yeah, some people call it a prescription for housing. So we'll see what that looks like. We don't know exactly how that's going to look like in Kitsap, but as soon as I know, we'll start announcing, because it's definitely something we'll be looking at of how we can get those resources out to folks. So we might have some additional options that way, like for our unhoused folks. But yeah, I think that's. I know I got to roll here pretty quickly, but is there anything else before we
Oh,
get out
that's
of here?
it. I already got the music queued up. You see how fast our time goes?
I know. I can't
Oh.
believe it. I looked down. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go.
Hey, I appreciate you, Matt. You know, it's always a great show, chock full of information. Have a good appointment, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks, Marwan. Appreciate you a lot. Have a good one.
You got it. You too. All
Bye-bye.
right, everyone. That is our weekly show with the Bremerton Housing Authority and KCR. Again, please share this information out. So much good information. Matt, you go ahead and drop off. Go ahead. You're good. I don't want you to be late. So much good information. Share it with others. I love when I see, BK and others coming on and taking notes and asking questions, because she may not need that information, but she knows individuals and families that do. And we really need to be all in this together. And unfortunately, there will be some folks from Salvation Army that will transition into homelessness, unfortunately, because there's not a space to house everyone. And how does that affect you? Well, if you are just hanging on, if your housing is insecure, if you're living check to check or not even that, one sickness, one accident, anything could put you into that situation. And the resources are already so tight. So please just keep that in mind. Plan ahead, be proactive, don't be reactive. Still try to live your life and enjoy and find ways to smile and laugh and uh, practice self-care, but you gotta be ready and you gotta plan. But anyway, I am Marwan Cameron. This is The Conduit. We will see you